Well, let's start with the H-1B storm. It's here, pretty much here. US has made it harder, it's made it costlier for Indian professionals to work. Indians who once formed the backbone of Silicon Valley and American hospitals are now stuck in the middle of a policy churn. For years, Indians made up more than 2/3 of all H-1B visa holders. But those numbers are falling and likely to shrink further. IT giants like TCS, Infosys, Wipro have already seen their H-1B workforce halved in recent years. Entry-level roles are shrinking, remote work and offshore delivery are becoming the new normal. The impact cuts across sectors. Tech firms, hospitals, universities, even startups in the US are all feeling the pressure. The losses for America are real, but Indian origin talent power companies like Google, Microsoft, IBM, Indian doctors from a large part of the US healthcare system, universities also rely heavily on international researchers, and H-1B families contribute billions of dollars every year to the US economy. While the US risks losing out, India has much to gain. We'll be focusing on how exactly can it do so in the long term. Higher visa costs means more Indian professionals will stay back at home. Those returning bring capital, networks and international work culture. Global capability centers in India also growing rapidly. Startups and deep tech firms are getting a fresh pool of talent. So for India, this storm may well be a turning point, a chance to retain its best while also negotiating better global mobility for the future. So we'll take this conversation forward, talk about what this means in terms of the India story going forward, and joining us as businessman and columnist Sohail Seth. Good morning, Sohail. Hope you're doing well. Sohail, let's start with first, the negative impact as is being weighed in on. That's what everyone's talking about. What happens to everyone who's looking at H-1B visa going forward? So tightening of these visa rules by US in the Indian context. Decode that story for us and then we'll talk about the opportunities placed there.
So there are three issues here. A, Indian companies, if they're hiring locals in the US, obviously their payroll costs may be high in certain sectors. But by and large, what I see, Kritsveen, is that there will be an offshoring by many companies and they will just move their bases out of America till this maniac is in office. The day Trump leaves, the global order of sanity will return. But till then, it is chaotic. So the sectors that will suffer or that will be impacted, to my mind, are apparel, textiles, gems and jewelry, and IT services. But I don't see IT services getting so badly hit because they will just switch shores. And to that end, the people who will actually suffer are Americans and American companies. Because let's imagine there is nearshoring or offshoring. Those people today are contributing to the American economy even though they are on H-1B visa. So when you get them off those H-1B visas and move them out of the country, that economic contribution also suffers, which someone as stupid as Donald Trump doesn't understand or realize. But he will. Like the tariffs will bring about a sense and a reality of inflation post-October that you and I can't imagine. So ultimately, in making America great again, he's also making America suffer again. So it's from MAGA to MASA. So I really don't know, what's happening, but I also believe this is a great opportunity for India. It's a great opportunity for large Indian companies and small Indian companies to think innovatively, to stop being the labor arbitrage capital of the world, and to do things which are globally competitive, both in terms of the brands they build and the markets they conquer. Look, North America, if you look at our export figures, we are talking about a 780 billion total export figure out of India, of which about 98 to 100 billion is what we do with America. So you're not talking about a large sum. So that's how I think it's not going to be that impactful. It will be short-term pain, but hopefully long-term gain.
Okay, short-term pain, long-term gain. We've got a few kilometers to cover before we reach our final destination though. So let's talk about that story a little bit, what more we need to do. Let's zoom out a little, Sohail. Tell us about the long-term scenario here. To one's mind, the first thing that comes with this is an opportunity. That reduced outflow of skilled Indian tech professionals also means more talent stays back in India. How do you see that playing out? How soon can that start being advantage India?
So there are two things here. Number one, I've said this on your channel multiple times. The government now needs to step in. This whole ease of business nonsense must be taken seriously. You need greater amount of government participation in the startup ecosystem. I'm not saying people should expect money from the government, but they should expect ease of business. One. Two, we must change our education syllabi. Our education is all about number crunching and rote learning. There's no innovation, there's no unfettered freedom which we accord to the minds of many of these bright Indians. And I think it will improve. See, ultimately, people want to stay in their own country as far as possible. Yeah. The great American dream, Christine, has become the great American nightmare. People across the world are seeing what ICE, agents are doing across America. No one wants to go into a country that hates you or revels in its displeasure towards you. So I think it's a great godsend for us in India to retain our talent and then to harness that talent in a way that actually adds value. It can't just be cost arbitrage or labor arbitrage.
Sohail, what does tightening of H-1B visa rules mean for the startup ecosystem in India? If we just talk numbers, it ranks third globally. Could this move then accelerate this momentum further? What's your analysis there?
Absolutely. B, more and more Indians who were looking at investing abroad will now look at investing in India. C, I think, and I said this again earlier on your channel, the government of India needs to do two things. One is we need to send delegations, not delegations, but we need to send some great Indian corporate leaders. I mentioned earlier, send a Mukesh Ambani, send a Chandra across the world to look at investments. Look at what Jio is, in fact, the perfect startup, albeit comes from a big corporate house. But look at what Chandra is doing with defense. Look at what small startups have done. You know, whether you talk about the Kamath brothers, whether you talk about Sri Vembu, all these people have done amazing work. They just need more encouragement. And I think India now needs to redefine its image and move away from being the cheapest to being the most innovative and most inventive country in the world. Because see, we have brain power, we need to harness it.
You've given us a couple of talking points we need to decode further. So we'll come back to you. A lot of taglines also that you're giving us on the Breakfast Club this morning. We'll come back to you in just a few seconds. So let's shift our focus and talk about the forward-looking story here. There are limits to how much India can absorb. Our research infrastructures, patchy universities lag global standards, research and development funding is low, and social infrastructure makes it harder to retain talent long term. If not the US, then where? Let's talk about the other options available for the young turning to other nations, for instance. Countries like Canada, Germany, UK, Australia, Singapore, UAE, even Japan are opening doors to Indian engineers, doctors, researchers. Each of them has its own immigration system, salary benchmarks, settlement pathways. So going across to Sohail once again. Sohail, we've spoken of what really is the positive outcome that India can await. What are the other options that youngsters in India can turn to? Let's take in a word from you then. Countries you think that are best positioned to emerge as the global tech talent hub due to its open immigration policies. Can you name a few? Would you say it's Canada, UK, Germany, France? In which order do they stand to gain as per you?
So let me tell you, other than Germany, both are shit shows, pardon the French. Canada has been going through its whole murky past thanks to Justin Trudeau, and the UK is on knife's edge with an absolute joker, Keir Starmer, running the country. You saw 2 weeks ago, actually 2 Sundays ago, the march against migration. So those countries are still fighting migration of any kind. They're still reveling in identity politics. But countries like Germany, like France, are open for business. And we should look at those countries. We should look at Japan. We should, look at the entire African continent. Because those countries need help, they have the money, they have the wherewithal, and they will be very supportive of any initiatives that India, oblique Government of India, or Indians take.
Have you noticed a pattern here, Mr. Seth? You think countries are competing for talent like they'd compete for capital, and you may not necessarily agree to this in terms of the United States and the picture US has put out for the world, but who do you think is doing this the best?
So they used to compete for capital. They never competed for talent other than talent in the healthcare sector, and that too nurses or doctors to a stretch. But I think America has made itself such a pariah in the world that now all the countries will have an open season to attract talent. So I see a lot of talent flowing to continents like, South America. I see Latin America, the whole universe. I see Europe opening out more and more for business, serious talent. So I'm a great optimist. I believe whatever has happened for the better. And we should take advantage. The only problem with us as a country is we have a problem for every solution. We don't think things through with alacrity and speed, and that's what we should do.
And how do you suggest we do that, Sohail? What more should India do to fully capitalize on this opportunity? In your words, how can India turn brain drain to brain gain?
So get government out, get corporate leaders in, get policies, which are conducive to immediate growth, and stop this goddamn planning commission nonsense of we'll plan for tomorrow. We have to start doing things as if it was yesterday. And I think the alacrity that we need to express and exude and exhibit must be now. B, look, Narendra Modi, whatever you say, thought about it in terms of Startup India and Make in India. We now need to accelerate this and accelerate it with grit and determination.
Okay, lovely. Sohail, we'll come back to you in just a few seconds. There's another story that we need to decode for all the youngsters who are watching The Breakfast Club this morning to talk about what options exist for them. India, other nations, what are the different criteria that are followed in some of these competing nations? So let's start with these criteria that are essential, that you will have to go through, you will have to follow through in case you're looking at an opportunity outside. So Canada, for instance, uses express entry where points are given for age, education and language skills. Australia runs skill select. Germany has the blue card and a new opportunity card that lets professionals search for jobs once inside the country. Singapore and UAE focus on employer offers and golden visas. Japan, in its case, is aggressively targeting AI and robotics talent through its highly skilled professional program. That's what the countries are essentially looking at. But do remember, most of these countries are not just picking talent randomly. They're scoring applicants based on clear criteria: education, work, experience, language ability, also salary levels. In fact, 2/3 of all H-1B approvals last year in the US were for computer-related jobs, showing exactly where the demand lies. That's how skill migration systems worldwide generally work. Points for qualification, language tests, experience and in-demand skills. Sometimes job offers are mandatory, sometimes they're not. So as America closes its doors, the rest of the world is watching. Let's go across to Sohail once again. Sohail, having pointed out to some of these criteria being followed around language proficiency, other criteria that are looked at by each of these countries before taking in immigrants, do you think these country-specific criteria can be done away with? A universal framework can be developed for evaluating skilled immigrants in the long term? Do you think it's high time we work on this?
Absolutely. And this is where you need, good consultants to come in, or good practices or good academics to come in and weigh in. There's no question that you can have a global skilling metric which allows for people to transfer, migrate, move between countries. Look, Kenichi Ome, the famous McKinsey chap in Japan, 30 years wrote a book called A Borderless World. Michael Porter talked about competitive advantage of nations. So we're not reinventing anything. We have the academic know-how, we have the academic heft. We now need to put things into action. My worry is that there's more talk in this country than action.
Okay. So for all those youngsters who are watching this, who are listening to you, who are taking in advice from you, Sohail, what would you say? All those looking at exploring options abroad, which country to you seems like an attractive destination? To begin with, just owing to ease of process.
See, I think what is easy is Europe because it's fairly liberal, it's more outgoing, and it is desperate in need of business process reinvention and reinvention of businesses. Because Europe has also been scarred by Donald Trump. Africa has a great need. We have to measure and manage it and correlate it to their propensity to afford oblique pay. Latin America, certain countries are also, upset with Trump. We should look at those countries, whether it's Brazil, Argentina. These are large economies. I'm talking about large economies. So just imagine North America doesn't exist for the next 3 years and 3 months. And then hopefully everything will be fine. Imagine Trump was a bad dream, which he is, but imagine that even with more ferocity.
Okay, many thanks, Sohail, for that wonderful conversation, for summing up that entire story, for really giving us perspective into what Indians can look forward to next and what's really the positive takeaway from all of this headline making that US has generated. Thank you for joining us this morning.